Empress here. I hope you're doing fabulous. You look amazing. You know, today's video is a total truth tip because you know this girl is all about telling you the total truth. And it's also kind of a disclaimer because, you know, I get some comments sent in to me. And so I really want to share, again, a total truth tip. So when you begin to set a boundary, when you begin to break away from the narcissist or the sociopath in your life, your friends and family are going to abandon you. Now, I'm going to say it's 80 to 90% of every single person you know personally that you would consider a friend, a family member, a confidant, even in like your work environment. I haven't lost clients per se, but since, you know, talking about this, because this has been part of my work without the narcissist label for almost 20 years. You know, I created the 4 steps for self-soothing, my gosh, like back in 2002, I think, the hooks of undealt emotions. So this has been part of my work for decades, but I never called it narcissism. I never called it narcissistic personality disorder. I've never labeled the very extreme of that being sociopath. So it's just a more clinical way of describing it for a broader audience, okay? Because the layman, I'm always going to be talking to you, but this is just for people who, you know, have a vocabulary of what's coming down the pike. Because although narcissism and being a narcissist or dating a narcissist is seeming a little far out to a large portion of you, it's the reality of what's happening, okay? So, you know, I've always taught that the common denominator in all your problems is you, okay? So I've said for decades now that if you want to fix a problem, you've got to fix you, right? I would have clients saying, you know, I want you to fix my mother, I want you to fix my sister, I want you to fix my husband, and it's like, yeah, but you're always there, so why not fix you and then I don't have to fix all of them, you see? So, you know, when you start to understand that the common denominator in your problems is you, then you realize that when you change you, those around you are going to be very uncomfortable, okay? Because you're a different person, right? It's why I am now Empress Answers. It's like I'm a totally different person than Shelby Collins was. Now, you know, I'm not going to get into my story, all of my story, obviously, in today's video, but I did talk about it in my last video where, you know, I'm self-love large, okay, that's what I call the term, self-love large. I love myself unconditionally and always have. Now, somebody who's with a narcissist is typically codependent or what I call self-love light, right? They're very light on self-love. And so you'll notice that because you began very self-love light, and by the time you're ready to leave a narcissistic relationship, you become self-love large, then those around you don't quite know how to deal with you. They don't know how to interact with you. You're a totally different person. One that's really mirroring back all the things within themselves that they wish they could change, okay? Because again, like attracts like. So, you know, typically if you're somebody who's self-love light, or in my case, self-love lighter, right now I'm even larger, but, you know, the lighter version of me, those around you are not secure in their own selves, right? Especially the narcissist that you're in a relationship with or the sociopath, right? So when you start to set boundaries, which means you won't be tolerating these types of relationships, i.e. you leave the narcissist, or you no longer talk to your family, or you break away and move away. When you start doing those things, a huge percentage, and again, I'm going to say upward to 80 to 90%. In my own case, I'm going to be 100% honest. It's been 100% of friends and family. 100%. There has not been one that has been like, you know what? I'm a ride or die, and I'm here with you whether this is gonna blow up in your face or not. I know what kind of person you are, and so I'm a ride or die, girl. I'm riding in your sidecar. Not one. They've all flew. Okay, flew. Like you could see the smoke trail behind them. They just dug out. And you know what? I'm 100% okay with that, right? Again, because I'm self-love large at this point, and I'm kind of bulletproof when it comes to having to be the only person in my corner, because that has been my life story, okay? When the going gets tough, the tough do get going, even though we know they're not tough, and you have to have that self-love to pull you through, right? So I wanted to share this and be like, look, here's a total truth for you, that when you begin to put yourself first, when you will no longer tolerate relationships where you're not loved, where you're not reciprocated, where you're not cared for, where there's not, where you're not, it's not an equal give and take, i.e. at least a 50-50, then when you start to put up those boundaries and be like, look, if you can't be this, then that's totally fine, but I can't be with you, then people will freak out around you. And you have to be prepared for that. Now, I would highly recommend that, you absolutely move forward anyway, because, I'm a huge proponent of not settling, ever. I always taught my son, always, never let anybody tell you no, even if it's me. And he knew what that meant. It's not like when it came to moral, teaching him his moral compass and instilling, right versus wrong. But, if you've got a dream, if you've got something you believe in, if you have self-respect, then don't ever let anyone tell you no. And because I was his parent and I was his only parent, I would always say, even if it's me, I always taught him that. And then when Will Smith was in that movie about being a single parent, Derek was like, oh my God, you totally have said that for years. It's like, I know, right? But I digress. You have to be your own cheerleader, right? A book I'm going to be writing is going to be calling your Inner Child Cheerleader, because you've got to be that for yourself. And you cannot live a life where even one other person is that for you, because if you do, then if that person is not doing that for you, you have no life. You're powerless. You're powerless to change. So you have to be that one, and maybe that one and only in a lot of cases for extended periods of time, where you're going to root for yourself anyway, no matter what, even if things look really, really dark. And this girl, let me just say, right, you haven't read my biography about, the making of an Empress. However, I have had almost every challenge you could possibly imagine thrown at this girl, okay? And I've had to be my own cheerleader my whole entire life, right? My family doesn't know how to cheer for themselves, and they sure as heck don't know how to cheer for someone else. So I had to learn this all on my own. It's why, since I was knee-high, and I mentioned this in the last video, I knew, everybody always told me their problems, okay? So it was like, there's something about this, right? I'm like a truth seeker, right? I'm like a tuning fork. You just can't lie when you're around me. The truth will always come to the surface. So it's a gift and a curse all at the same time, because when I made these changes, which have been significant in the last 6 months for sure, and stood up to powers far larger than anybody I know would have balls enough to stand up to, or chops, right? That's another program I created years ago, finding your chops, because, it's a difficult life out there, right? And so even when it's a power that is far, 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 far greater than you, you have to respect yourself enough. You have to love yourself enough. You have to believe in yourself enough to say, you know what, even if it's you, I'm going to put myself first. I'm going to stand for the truth. I will not be suppressed and shut up and told to be quiet, right? Even if it's you. So it's, Words don't teach. It's life experience that teaches, my friends. And so you can hear about something and you can read about something all day long. And it's not till you're standing up there at the gates of hell staring it straight in the face that you've got to find your chops, right? You have to give yourself a beliefectomy. That was another term that I actually trademarked years ago, beliefectomy, to believe in what you're going to do. And that no matter what, you keep going. And no matter what, you keep telling yourself you will be successful. But just realize when you live in that internal truth, people around you absolutely defecate on themselves. They just don't know what to do with somebody who's that self-knowing, who is that, has that much, is self-love large to that extent. They just don't know how to deal with somebody like that. So again, it's my opinion, 80 to 90% will blow out. And in my case, it was 100%. Now, if you're a client, it's like, holy hell, this is great, right? Because she's really just boom. There's never been anything fluff about me. I was born on the East Coast, people. And so, I talk with my hands and I tell you the God truth. And, you have to be prepared for everybody to just dig out. And that you're going to be sitting there standing, holding the bag all by yourself. And just know that's an excellent place to be, because as soon as you embrace that up level and you're able to, hold that vibration, you will attract a whole new crew of people that are self-love large themselves, right? Who believe in themselves no matter what, who will be your ride or die when something may seem like, wow, that is really out there, or that is really a big bite, but you know what? I'm with you on that, right? And to me, that's always been like, who am I to tell somebody? How would anything ever be invented if everybody who invented something listened to the naysayers? Okay, so the reason people are miserable in this world, and the reason they get into these very self-love light, we're just going to use those nice words, right? The reason they get into these self-love light relationships, they'll never get what they want. They'll never get their dreams. They'll never achieve those things that need to be achieved for the world to progress, right? Because that's what a thought leader does. That's what somebody on the leading edge does. And honestly, when you're walking away from an unhealthy relationship, this day and age, that's on the leading edge. Okay, that is something that the majority do not do. They just suck it up. They sacrifice, they shove it down, they become diseased, they become obese, they become, mentally unstable and depressed and have anxiety because they themselves are selling their own souls out. And so again, that's not the norm these days. The norm is to just say, well, I need the paycheck. Well, there's no divorce in my family. Well, I'll just go on Weight Watchers. And they don't have the balls. They don't have the chops to stand up for what they want and what they believe, and to not settle no matter what and no matter who. So, that's where I come in, because again, this girl has had to do that her whole entire life. And, it's something I've been doing and teaching now for decades. So it's time that you begin this journey as well too, and so that we change this world, one person at a time. That's how we're going to make this world healthy again, is if we all put ourselves first. So we'll see you on the next video. I love you.